So the weapon meta has established itself. We're about 2 months into the Taken King, and so I've been thinking about what I think is going to be happening on the next set of weapon balance changes to hit Destiny, whenever that might be. We all know what the strong stuff is. Snipers are great in PvE, pulses are top tier in PvP, so what do I think would be good for the next weapon balance patch? We'll start with auto rifles. I think auto rifles are in an okay spot right now, but they could use just the slightest bump up in PvE in damage to be able to compete with pulse rifles. They don't have the consistent damage output that a pulse rifle can. Pulses are a lot more controlled, you can plant those shots better, you can get a better feel for the recoil and the bounce, whereas auto rifles, you just gotta hold down the trigger and try to control it. They don't feel as powerful as pulses or scouts, but they're pretty close, so I think a small damage increase would do them some good justice for PvE, although I don't think that's going to save something like the raid auto rifle from being top tier in the auto rifle category. That thing has problems all on its own. In PvP, you can't really buff them too much, but I think a small stability increase to give them a better chance against pulse rifles would not be terrible. Right now, the hard-hitting auto rifles kill in about 8 shots if they all hit to the head. I think they hit for 25 damage to the head, 20 to the body. That means right now it's 8 shots to the head to kill, 10 to the body. You'd have to bring that up to 29 damage per headshot to make it so that they killed in 7 shots to the head, then make it so body shots dealt 23 damage to kill in 9 shots. Would that be too much for the hard hitters? I guess there's only one way to find out. Bullet hose autos need to be buffed somehow, though. Since the beginning of the game, they've been a joke, and still are. I've been playing around with the Trials auto rifle, which is a bullet hose, and while it's a fun gun to use, its only effective range is basically a worse auto rifle range. It cannot compete beyond that, and that's with very high stability on the gun. I can understand the issue with making them too stable though, and that's obviously turning them into a straight laser beam, but I don't think that giving them a base stability increase buff would be a terrible thing. Pulses are obviously the top of the food chain right now in PvP, and I'd also give them that tag in PvE as well, or are at least among the top tier in PvE. I will say that the nice thing about pulse rifles is that pretty much all varieties of pulse rifle are good in PvP. High rate of fire, low rate of fire, it doesn't matter which one you use, they are all very usable and pretty good. In PvE, you definitely want a harder hitting one, the high rate of fire ones aren't as great. The reason I think pulses are so good right now in PvP is because of fast time to kill and their range, similar to why hand cannons used to be so strong. Their damage drop-off feels almost non-existent. You're almost always dealing full damage on these maps, so I think what's going to happen is that they're going to lose a little bit of range, and you're going to actually notice some damage drop-off, at least on the high rate of fire ones. The low rate of fire ones might see a range nerf, but maybe not as significant, since I feel like the low rate of fire pulses are more for passive players liking to attack from farther away. I don't think you can nerf their damage at all or nerf their time to kill without really hitting them hard, and I don't think that's really the problem. In PvE, I think they're pretty fine. I don't know what Bungie considers to be too much damage in PvE or anything like that, but right now, they don't feel like they're a problem. I know they are popular though, and I know Bungie likes to at least attempt to give people options, so we'll see. Hand cannons have fallen off the face of the earth. Their damage got nerfed a little bit in PvP, but not enough to change their time to kill. What really got hit is their range, accuracy, and consistency. In PvE, they could use a slight range buff, but most of all, I think they could use a buff to their reserve ammo. In longer engagements, they struggle with ammo conservation and are generally a higher risk, higher reward weapon. If they are going to be that kind of weapon, they either need to be more rewarding, which is difficult to do for the hand cannon since the most rewarding thing is hitting headshots to one-shot an enemy, or they need to be made more consistent. With the Taken being the way that they are, very twitchy and teleporting a lot, wasting shots is not something you want to be doing with a hand cannon, which in turn makes the hand cannon a much less appealing choice. In PvP, range is always king, and we talked about this a lot in my Hawkmoon video, where the hand cannon just needs to be a more consistent experience in order for it to be usable again. Scale rifles in general are in a good spot. The scale rifles in the game right now are pretty good. You got the Hung Jury, which feels massively over budget in terms of item level. The Jade Rabbit isn't too bad, Talok is an absolute monster, and even something like the Boolean Gemini is a very strong and very capable scout. In PvE, I don't have any complaints, and I don't think that they need to be touched. In PvP, they certainly are more usable than they once were, but I think if pulses get hit just the slightest bit, that might open up scout rifles a little. But in general, I don't think scout rifles need to be touched at all. Special weapons now will start with sniper rifles, the strongest overall. In PvE, at least in the raid, they are top tier. Insane damage from safe distances means there's zero reason to go with anything else. There's not much you can really do with snipers in PvE besides reduce their damage slightly, but I'm not really sure that's going to happen. Being unable to one-shot stuff like Hive Knights or two-shot shielded targets is kind of a bummer given the nature of the weapon type. In PvP, I think the biggest complaint for snipers is their aim assistance. The majority of legendary sniper rifles in the Taken King have over 50 aim assistance, and although you can't just fire willy-nilly near someone's head and get headshots, I think people don't want them to be as lenient as they might be right now. Maybe reduce aim assistance across all legendary snipers across the board to demand more accurately placed headshots. Shotguns are almost there. In 2.0, they got hit pretty hard in PvE. I did think that they needed to be hit, but maybe not as hard, so I'd bring damage up a small amount for players who want to be a little more aggressive, maybe about a 5 to 8% damage increase. Otherwise, I think they're in a pretty okay spot. We just need more encounters where they are actually worth using over a sniper rifle. That's why they were so popular in Prison of Elders. The encounters were much more hectic and made sniping less desirable and shotgunning more beneficial. Something like the Raid doesn't lend itself very well to shotguns. In PvP, they finally got rid of Shot Package, which was a good start, but I still think they need to be hit in some way. If you watched my Trials video for Exodus Blue, you saw me get shotgunned a couple of times where I was very surprised that I died, and I'm sure you guys experienced those kills and deaths as well. I know I do.
Watch the shotgun. Oh
Wow,
my god.
Really? It doesn't really help that the game basically gives you the best shotgun you could possibly find as a quest reward, a conspiracy theory with a range boost and rangefinder. Again, I think range is going to be hit in some way. I don't know how much, but I still feel like something is going to happen where warrioring, aka bum rushing someone with a shotgun, is going to be less possible, and you'll actually have to tactically use the weapon in confined spaces. This, in turn, would make weapons like Found Verdict and Invective popular again. They are definitely getting popular again already. Something drastic needs to happen to fusion rifles. I think if shotguns are knocked down in PvP, you will see fusion rifles return, but I'm mainly talking about PvE. If you want something dead up close, you shotgun it. If you want something dead from afar, you snipe it. Snipers do way more damage than fusion rifles. They do it from farther away and in a much safer way. So I think that much like they did with shotguns in year 1, just crank up the damage of fusion rifles a lot in PvE and see what happens. Don't adjust stability or range or anything like that, just increase damage versus Minions of the Darkness by something crazy, 50%, and see if anyone starts using them. There's nothing special about most fusion rifles. There are not bonuses that make them ridiculous or anything like that, so they need something. This feels like one of those screw it moments where you just do something and you let the community figure it out, but you keep eyes on it, ready to nerf it down just in case you went overboard. You want to know how forgettable sidearms are? I finished this entire video, then asked my friends on their thoughts, and one person said, "You forgot sidearms." Sidearms are much more of a PvP weapon than a PvE one. They have the ability to shut down shotgunners, and if shotguns do get nerfed, I think you're going to see sidearms popping up as even more of a counter. However, I don't think you can touch their damage right now. Anything to buff it, and they are too powerful. Anything to nerf it, and they are terrible. In PvE, I think they're a non-factor and incredibly bland. There are very few situations where they are useful, and I honestly don't know what would ever save them. Heavy machine guns and rocket launchers, I really don't have a huge problem with. I think both are in a pretty good position right now. Rocket launchers I wouldn't mind seeing get a slight damage increase in PvE to make them a little more appealing, since I feel like heavy machine guns are better, but otherwise, I don't think these need any adjustments. Anyway, guys, that is what I think needs to happen in the next set of weapon rebalances that hit Destiny, whenever that might be. I do hope that they are going to be monitoring weapon balance a little bit more than year 2. I feel like I remember them saying that they are going to do quarterly balance patches, but I cannot remember exactly. If you have any ideas for what you think needs to happen for weapon balance, let's hear it. For those wondering where my Trials of Osiris run was for Exodus Blue, I uploaded my Trials run late on Sunday night because my first Flawless, I don't think I performed that well, so I did not get to upload it on Saturday. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.